Hi everyone, I'm going to catch up with some of my 12 tags of 2013. I'm 4 tags behind and I haven't got many days left to the end of the year, and I want to today finish my November tag. So this is Tim's November tag and he did a rather lovely chalk technique, and unfortunately this time I haven't hardly got any of the products that he used. He used a special embossing powder combined with chalk to achieve this effect, and also one of his lovely blueprint stamps, and I haven't got either. But I did have some blackboard spray that I used on a Halloween project, so I've sprayed some card to see if I can get a sort of chalky blackboard effect of my own. So it worked quite well on the matte black card. I also tried spraying it on this pearlized card, and it's a little bit more of a blotchy finish than I had with the plain black cardstock. But I'm going to use these little bits of card and I'm going to try to achieve something not dissimilar to Tim's tag, but something definitely inspired by it. So I'm going to take the piece of card that I think took the paint the best, and that's the matte cardstock, and it's definitely got a lovely dull black finish, and I'm just going to trim my 3x6 inch piece of cardstock into a tag shape. And I always keep my little template on hand so that I can do this quite easily without having to measure every time, and those of you that watch my videos will know that already, so at the risk of repeating myself, the next thing that I wanted to use, I did want a bit of colour on this tag, even though I'm going to go for the chalky effect. So I'm going to be using my distress paints. I've got 4 colours here, and I wanted some orange, which I didn't have yet in my distress paint collection, so I've got a little bit of a tester pot to use. And I'll be using this little bit of plastic packaging as a paint palette. So I'm ready to go, and I'm going to try and create a chalky finish on my tag. The other part of the inspiration that I wanted to take from Tim's tag was the leaf element that he used. I didn't have that lovely stamp, but I do have a leaf punch, which is a similar shape, and I'm going to be using those to create the leaf element on my tag. And I'm punching some leaves, and I've had to stand up to do this. Sorry for the shaking on camera. It looks a little bit violent, but it's a bit of an old punch, and I'm just punching some leaves out of some more of that matte black cardstock. So I'm just having a little bit of a play with the distress paints to see if I can achieve that chalky look that Tim achieved on his tag. And I'm achieving that by just dabbing off the paint once I've put it onto that black cardstock. And it's working quite well, so I'm definitely going to go with my distress paints, and I want to add a little bit of colour onto my leaves. So I'm just beginning by adding a layer of colour and then dabbing it off with a piece of tissue. And then I'm going to gradually build up the intensity of colour without losing completely the chalky black background of the leaf. So I'm just using the 4 colours that I've picked out, which is mustard seed, peeled paint, evergreen bell, picket fence, and of course that orange tester pot. This is some leftover paint from when I painted the coving in my son's bedroom, which is now taxi yellow, no longer orange. Took me a little while to paint that out, I can say, and I'm going to be using it to add some autumnal tones to these leaves. So I've started out by just lightly smudging the leaves really to create that chalky effect, and then I'm just using the applicators on the distress paints just to stipple on some more colour, just lightly. And obviously I haven't got that applicator on the orange tester pot, so I'm just using a stippling brush, and I'm just building up little bits of colour onto each of those leaves. And I've sort of created 2 colourways. So I've got one with more yellow and evergreen bell, and the other one with more orange and the peeled paint. And I moved on to creating a chalky edge to the main tag, and I'm literally just smudging on some of the picket fence and then wiping it off again with a piece of tissue, and that seems to be working quite well. And once I've got that smudgy background, then I'm just going to go around the edge with the applicator of the distress paint just to add a little bit of a whiter border or edging to my tag to make it stand out a bit like a frame. So just lightly dusting all the way around the edge. So I'm quite happy with that. Next I used my Spellbinder's Cherry Blossoms die to cut out some branches, and again I've used that sprayed cardstock that I made, and obviously I'm going to make these stand out a little more against the black background, and so I'm going to chalk them with the picket fence just to make them stand out. So I've got a rough idea of where I'm going and how many branches I need, and I'm just smudging on some of that picket fence and then adding a few stipples just to add a few highlights onto the branches. I quite like the white against the black, so I'm going to add a little bit of that to the leaves as well. As usual, I like to make a frame on all of my tags, so I'm going to create a slightly bigger tag. So I'm just adding a border all the way around to frame my tag, and I'm just stippling on all of the colours of paints that I'm using. So the mustard seed, and then I'm drying it in between the coats, a little bit of the evergreen bough, some peel paint, and the little bit of cardstock that I'm doing at the side is to punch out a circle for the reinforcer for the hole in my tag. Just adding a little bit more of the mustard seed, and then I think I'm quite happy with that. So it just creates a little bit of colour around the edge of my main tag. And then I always like to cut out a 1/2 inch circle, and that acts as the reinforcer where I place the ribbon on the top of my tag. So now I'm beginning to think a little bit about the composition of my tag, and I think you can see where I'm heading, but I want to add a little bit of interest. So I'm starting by putting the reinforcer in place, and then I'm going to be using some ribbon. I really like colouring ribbon, and you can colour ribbon with all sorts of things, and the distress paints are no different. So again, going with the stippling, and this time I'm going to be using the brush. It just seemed to work a little bit better. I'm going to stipple on the 4 colours all the way along the length of my American seam binding ribbon. And as things got towards the end here, it just looked all a little bit too green, so I'm going back over with a little bit of the yellow and a little bit of the orange. I've used distress paint to colour my ribbons before, and one thing that I do quite like about it, and it's something I'm going to use on this tag, is the fact it just makes the ribbon a little bit stiffer, as if it's been starched, so it holds its shape quite easily. So I've cleaned up, and I'm using my heat gun just to make sure that the ribbon is thoroughly dry before I add it to the bottom of my tag. And I'm going to use some strong double-sided tape, and I'm going to attach the ribbon to the bottom of my tag. I'm just having a little bit of a think about how much of the ribbon I want to show, and I'm going to pleat the ribbon onto the bottom of my tag, and the strong double-sided tape will hold that in place, and you can see that it's already holding the little pleats as I press them into position. And then I'm just wrapping a little bit of the ribbon round onto the back of the tag so that I get a neat edge. And it's the paint that helps those pleats stay in place, because it's just a little bit stiffer than it would be normally. So I've decided to put my little quote or words on the bottom of this tag on the black strip of card. So just measuring where I want my second piece of ribbon to go, and I'm ready to pleat again, pleating onto a piece of strong double-sided tape. Again, securing those ends of the ribbon to the back of the tag. Using the picket fence to create that chalky finish on the strip of card that I'm going to be using for the wording on my tag. And then I'm going to attach that in position around the bottom of my tag. I started out by testing a white pen to see if I could use that to create my chalky writing on the bottom of my tag, but I wasn't too keen on it. And then I found this white Brilliance ink pad, and that gave a lovely chalky finish. I'm just using some small stamps to stamp my little set of words. So I'm falling for you, so a pun on the falling leaves of autumn. So I'm just putting in the I'm falling for, and I'm going to add the you at the end on a little heart. So I'm going to create a band to wrap around the bottom of my tag, and I'm securing it in position with some double-sided tape. Just making sure I cover up both sides of the ribbon, and there you can see it starting to take shape. And I think that I'm ready to attach that in position on the card. I'm just having a look at some more embellishments, and I've got these little wooden hearts and arrows, and I think I'm going to use some of those on the card. And I'm just giving them a little coat of the picket fence to keep in the chalky white theme. And then I'm going to use a whole load more of that strong double-sided tape to attach my main tag to the framed or the framing tag that I created earlier. And then I can punch the hole in the top of my tag, ready for the ribbon. And then I'm ready to put my branches and leaves onto my tag. I'm just gluing them down. And I've decided, as I'm going to have a lot of leaves and detail on the front of my tag, I'm just going to loop a piece of the painted ribbon through the top of the tag. And as I attach the leaves into position on the tag, I'm just giving them a little bit of shape by curving them with my fingers, and then I'm attaching them to the tag using some silicone glue. So once I'm happy that I've got enough leaves on the branches of my tree, I'm ready to start looking at some of the other embellishments. I've kept two little leaves by because I want to just tuck them under the heart where I intend to write the word you, I'm falling for you. And I've got two other little white hearts and some arrows to add to my tag. So again, I just like to play with the composition a little bit. And once I'm happy with how they are, I'm again attaching them to my tag with some silicone glue. Now I'm going to take a black pen, and I had a little trouble with my pens here. I wasn't sure if it was the distress paint that these pens didn't like, but I eventually found a pen that worked. So I'm going to use this permanent marker, and I'm just adding a little bit of a stitch detail around each of my wooden elements. Now, if you've been following my series of tags, you'll know that I like to add the date. So this one's a November tag, November 2013, and I like to say that my tag was inspired by Tim Holtz. But I haven't really got room on these little hearts. No matter how hard I try to write small enough, I can't quite manage it on the wood grain. So I've decided to opt for some little orange strips of paper instead. So I'm just trying to get them as small as I can and deciding where to put them on my tag. So I'm going to be adding November 2013 to the heart at the top of my tag, and inspired by Tim Holtz to the heart at the bottom. I wonder if you'll agree with me that sometimes plan B works out better than plan A. In this instance, I really like that little splash of orange that my plan B has brought to my tag. So I'm quite happy that I couldn't actually fit the wording onto the hearts after all. Next I decided to add some highlights with my pen just to make things stand out a little bit more. So I'm using my white pen and I'm sketching lightly round the elements on my tag, so round the branches and around the actual tag itself and around the leaves. I quite liked the effect of this because I do think it made everything look a little bit more like the stamp or the lovely blueprint stamp that Tim used on his tag. I'm just drying off that heart to replace the one that I messed up earlier, and again adding the stitch detail around the outside. And the word you to the heart at the bottom, so I'm falling for you. I think I'm almost there. A couple of very tiny splatters just to take the clean background that I seem to have achieved, just to mess it up just a little bit, and then I'm just adding a little tiny bit of stitching around each of those little orange tags that I created earlier, and a couple of blue dots with some Cosmic Shimmer Pearl paint just to add a final touch of colour to my chalky tag. So there you have my November 2013 tag. So from Tim Holtz's inspiration to my interpretation, and I've had fun trying to create that chalky background, and I hope you agree that even though I didn't have any of the things that Tim used, that I have achieved something that you can recognise as being inspired by his November tag. So I've got 3 tags left to do and 3 days left till the end of the year. I don't know how I've managed to get so behind, but I've still got January's to do, which I missed out right at the beginning of the year, and I've got October and December to catch up on. So I'm hoping to post 3 more videos before the end of the year. If you want to keep up with what I'm doing, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. And to everyone that's joined me recently, thank you very much for subscribing. I love to have your support and it really encourages me to make more videos. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Hi there, one final share from me. I'm just adding a link to my playlist, which is Tim Holtz inspired tags. So all of the tags that I've made for 2012 and 2013 so far. So if you want to have a look at more tag videos, then please click on the link.